Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your sensei, your griot, here to tell you a story. And here it is, December 3rd or 4th, and we're heading towards winter, and I'm back at the deep green. My attempts to find a warmer place didn't quite work out. The universe wanted me back here for some reason. I can only think that something not too good is going to happen in New York City, so that's why the universe didn't want me here. Now, I've been talking about all kinds of things. I've had many different series, but this kind of my presence on YouTube started out with the ancient Irish Crone, right? And John Canary Boy's Johnny Pump, his channel, and he has done everything to. My videos have over 100,000 views, and he has never ever passed that on to me. So anyway, but that is, oh, what's the right word? A metaphor, a poster boy, really kind of what we are right here in 2022 in December, heading towards Jesus Christ's birthday. The thing is not that, you say God and Jesus, that's all there is. That's it. No, it's your actions, what you do, right? How you do it, what you do with your life, right? If you have children, once you have children, your life belongs to your children, right? And one of the issues that I see in the 20th century, especially in modern America, is that children are more or less fashion accoutrement, right? They really aren't, parents live their lives with their children, right? Um, and it doesn't matter whether the children is successful or miserably a failure, right? Because either way, the parents can live their life through either through ego or through Freudenscheid, right? And so we're gonna spool this back to 1970 when I was in Dublin at Trinity College, and I was sent there by Marion Tulin, who was head of Hofstra Theater Department. She was also on the board of Lincoln Center, and she kind of ran Juilliard and a few other things. She was my go-to person. I knew a lot of. I had been working in theater already, and I worked for Herbert Berghoff. That's how I met Marion at Herbert Berghoff Studio on Tunn Street in Bank, and I met a number of theater folk. Pretty much every TV show that was shot in New York City, all the actors came through this cabal of actors, directors, theater schools that I worked for. Right? And so, and I worked for Lester Polakloff. He was Joe Malziner's best boy, and I was Lester's best boy. And Joe Malziner invented modern theater. He brought electricity to Broadway. And so that was the world I was in. And the theater world was quite interesting because it had every kind of person you could think of, right? Every gender bending, everything, every political stripe, every social stripe, every color, race, you name it. And it all kind of proved that all of those things that stood in the way of people moving forward were just illusions. Because in theater world, if you could produce, you were put there. It was all about your ability to produce, your quality of character. So I was, an electrician since I was born, and schooled to be a great electrician since I was 9. So by the time I hit, 16, 17, 18, I was pretty good. And I stumbled into, um, you know, the Fillmore East, Billy Graham's Rock and Roll Palace. And so that got me into wiring, sound systems, nightclubs, discotheques, theaters, you name it. And so that's how I met Marion. And she saw me actually when I was in high school. My high school had a theater crew, and we entered the Columbia Broadcasting, thing. Where we put on a show for an audience and a judgment, and we won. And we were the smallest. We went up against Deerfield and UMass and all kinds of theater groups, and we won. We did Job, JB, and I played the devil, right? And she was enamored by my playing the devil, and that I did everything. I directed it, produced it, built a set, lit it, you name it, I did it, right? And with nothing, right? And so that's how I got into theater school, because my headmaster wanted me dead, so he did everything he could to um, I got into many schools, but when they sent the paperwork to the school, he just threw it in the garbage pail. So I didn't respond, so they went on to the next character. So, but I had met Marion, oh, a year before I graduated high school, and in that summer, I kind of worked for different people, and met her again and again and again, and she saw the things I was working on, and so she. Right. So anyway, I went off to Hofstra, and Hofstra was, interesting school. My mother, I was working. I was trying to stay out of the draft, so I was volunteering for every kind of social. I worked for the Boys Athletic League, which was sponsored by Local 3, the IBEW. The unions used to be social entities, right? They used to have all kinds of things helping people out, not just getting you a better salary. And so, they had their own. They had their own hospitals, their own schools. Their own. It was quite interesting. What the unions, and they don't do that anymore because they've been co-opted, bought out, and if you go to Dark Journalist, Friday, they had their show on Friday nights, and they had a really good one. Uh, with Joseph P. Farrell, where they kind of show all of the connections between the Nazis, NASA, CIA, assassination of Jack Kennedy. I won't go into that. You go watch that, right? I'll give you a little.
With advanced aerospace technology in 1973 is doing this either on a lark, or they have some pretty secure inside information, and it's the latter, because as I pointed out in the McCarthy book, when the Monmouth transcripts are finally released, it's very clear that Senator McCarthy and Roy Cohn both knew something about UFOs and so on and so forth, simply by the way they're asking questions from the witnesses that they're summoning.
Absolutely, and you've got in your books on this, which have really dived in deep. You've got the UFO mention, Project Blue Book, and Roswell all in
All of the Monmouth, yes, all of the Monmouth transcripts.
And Crone is asking those questions.
Dark journalist, Joseph Farrell,
both asking these questions. And let's remember what Monmouth
UFO
at
file.
that time was doing. It was doing top secret radar agent flow of information. When behind a wall of secrecy, and how 75 years of CIA obfuscation and political lies have kept the game going right up until today. Have we hit a turning point? Please join us now.
So that thing is stuff that I was involved in investigating back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I have to say that there's a whole generation of people like Dark Journalist and even David Wilcox. And I mean, if you take that whole community and look at it, and see, that's what people don't do. You have to look at everything and then start pulling the threads out, right? And so we're coming to a place where it's very strange. And it's always been strange. We just never seen it. We've been obfuscated. I like that word. We've been cajoled. We have been distracted by materialism and our big screen TVs and fast food TV. I mean, fast food TV. Yes, it's like the Romans had, bread and circus. We have fast food and big screen TVs. So, again, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. YouTube is really a great service, really, really great. And sad, to say that the internet is going to go away in its present state. And, Elon Musk buys, Twitter, and then he goes in with a wrecking ball. He's like the carrot head of the internet. And, Twitter was a relatively reputable platform. It tried its best to keep things straight. And now it's just going to be, a hellhole, and it's going to bring the rest of the platforms down, right? And they will become just like the crypto guy got taken down. And he said, well, I didn't steal that money. Everything got hacked, and that's kind of what's going to happen to the internet. And then what we will have is, Elon Musk said that, he is going to, if you join, Twitter, he's going to give you his own cell phone, right? Which will connect to his satellite constellation that he's putting up there, 50,000 little satellites just above your head. And so you will be, this device, right? Our cell phones, right? This device is a miniaturized version of the Keyhole spy satellite, right? And what we have with this device is we have surveillance economy, right? Everything you do, is done through this device. Every bit of news and entertainment, communication with friends and family through this device. You buy everything on this device. You look at all of your pertinent and special information on this device. Every kind of institution that you want to deal with, like they have to deal with medical and Social Security and all that. They all want you to be on that device. And what we're going to see, it's already happening. He bought Twitter. He's taking it. He fired everybody of any kind of responsibility or technical ability, and he's got a company that specializes in AI. So he's going to basically replace all the employees of Twitter with AI, right? And so everything will be proprietorial. You'll get nothing out of him and or Twitter, but they'll get everything out of you, right? And you will be, because of convenience, you will get a super duper, the Elon Musk cell phone will be so much more convenient than an iPhone. It'll be so much groovier, so much sexier, so much everything. Everyone will have to have one. And that's, the element of control, right? So go back to 1969. I was at Hofstra University and for that, first semester, and I was already doing what the um, they were trying to teach the theater students. I was already doing it. I had all the greatest teachers there were. Herbert Berghoff, Uta Hagen, Lester Polikoff, just to name a few. And so I was just put there by Marion so I wouldn't get drafted. Right? She sent all the paperwork into my draft board. Said he's going to college. I got him covered. So I was at this camp, Arenda, up there, right next to West Point, up there in Bear Mountain, and we had inner city kids, right, and we were keeping them out there. And so the first group they send us, and there was 16 of us who ran the camp, and we got 300 boys. And the first group we got was 60, the oldest. We didn't get the young, we got the oldest, right? And we were all guys like me, basically guys who were looking for a way to stay out of the draft. And so we were all, white, middle class, bourgeois, liberal characters. And the only black person there was a kid. What was that? Eddie, and he was from Chicago, and he was Palestinian, but his father was a doctor, and his grandfather was a doctor. He was like the fourth generation of people who, and all his, great grandfather, grandfather, father, all doctors, all surgeons, and he was going to be an artist, so. And a social activist, and so that was the only, he and I were the only two guys who were close to being people of color. And so all these youngsters showed up, and they were 16-year-olds, and they were in gangs, and they had zip guns. It was like West Side Story, black and Hispanic and a few Irish, and a couple of Italians, and so they just tore the place down. They didn't listen to us, they outnumbered us, they were bigger than us, it's like, and then the camp director, who was affiliated with that institution, he had been a camp counselor the year before, and they made him the director. We got there, and me and two other guys had some experience with fixing things up. So this was a World War II camp. 68, all the riots were, and so they're trying to get as many kids out of the city as possible. And so there I was, kind of looking around at all of this. And I had just come from a prep school of unbelievable wealth and power. I went to school with the wealthiest people on the planet. And when I talk about the hidden hand, all of these families were the people who were, behind the curtain, and the books, Wizard of Oz, it wasn't only one book. They were a whole set of books, right? And it was written by an economist who was trying to tell everyone about, hey, this is what's going on in the world. And he used Oz as a metaphor. We go to the internet. Let's go to the internet. Search type of web. Wizard of Oz political ramifications.
The Wizard of Oz is a 1939 movie directed by Victor Fleming, starring Judy Garland, Jack Haley, and Ray Bolger.
And that's what you want to be taught, right? Wizard of Oz books.
According to Wikipedia, the Oz books form a book series that begins with The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and relates the fictional history of the Land of Oz. Oz was created by author L. Frank Baum, who went on to write 14 full-length Oz books.
Author was Frank Baum, was an economist, was an American author best known for his children's books, particularly wonderful. Wizard of Oz, yes. Who is the author? Frank Baum, 1930s economist. Road to Emerald City is paved with good intentions. Gold. Follow the yellow brick road. The Road to Oz, The Wizard of Oz. Let's see. Frank Baum has discovered that was the work of Chase and Morton, who invented Rutgers University, The Wizard of Oz, as a monetary. Okay, there we go. You rock off Rutgers University. I taught at a school called the Newark College of Engineering, right across the street from Rutgers in Newark, as a monetary allegory, Journal of Political Economy, Volume 98, 1990, page 739 through 760. See, Wizard of Oz is perhaps the best loved American children's story. The movie starring Judy Garland. Blah blah blah. My purpose is to unlock the references in the Cowardly Lion fell asleep in a field of poppies, drug addiction, the identity of Wizard of Oz, significance in the West, is so happy that Dorothy's shoes. Let's see. This paper also serves to more conventional purpose. William Jennings Bryan and his supporters in a free silver movement who play the central role in the story have been treated as a monetary crank, though was supervising socio. Anyway, go read that. Right? It's a. I'm not going to read it for you, but anyway. So when in 1969, all of this stuff was swirling around. The story of Oswald. What's his name? The guy in New Orleans was going after the people who shot Jack Kennedy, and the movie by what's his name, JFK, is a kind of a nice little primer, but it's really a cutout. It's really obfuscating everything what was going on. They never mentioned UFOs in that, but the guy who was district attorney there, he made all the connections, right? Guy Bannister was an FBI agent who ran the X-Files before Mulder and Scully. I mean, he literally ran the X-Files for J. Edgar Hoover up until he died, when he was brought in front of Congress and they had all his papers and they were wanting him to discuss what this was all about, and he had a heart attack right then and there. Right? And if Senator McCarthy got totally whacked because he was going after these connections of advanced Nazi technology. Anyway, so there I go, off to Hofstra, and I was at this camp during the summer, and they send to my house all the stuff, like what does your kid like to eat, who does he want as a roommate, da 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 da. Now, Hofstra is a totally Jewish school, really, really Jewish, right? Focused on sending Jewish boys off to law school. So we got a big, pre-law school and a big medical pre-law school, and then the rest is very interesting liberal arts. Theology, art, history, theater. They have a big theater department at Marintoon and Rand, and so that's how she got me in. She says he's in, and that's how I got it. So my mom filled out all the stuff, and she said he must be with Catholic boys. He must be with Catholic boys, right? And so I come back and I go to school, and my father, basically, my mother has packed a little suitcase. I mean, little suitcase, and my father gives me $10. So just take the train. So I take the train to Hempstead and then hitchhike to Hofstra, right? Like most people, mommy and daddy take you to college, and there's a big tradition and ceremony. No, my dad just gave me $10 and said, get a job. So, went to the theater department, got in, then went over to, the people say where you're going to stay, blah, blah, blah. They send me off, and they built all of these high-rise, 22-story, apartment buildings in that school, and it was built on an Air Force base. So there was no trees, no nothing. They just built it right on the big parking lots, because half the school was guys who commuted, and the rest of us, we were there, and most of them. So I get my where I'm supposed to stay, and all the school has just turned to where the dorms are co-ed. But they're not co-ed, because you walk in the dormitory, it's like Stalag 13. They have all kinds of security, and they have two elevators. One elevator goes all the odd floors, the other one evens. Boys are evens, girls are odds. You had your little ID card, you kind of stuck it in a slot, would take you to your floor, right? So there was no way you could get onto the girls' floor, and there's no way the girls could get on the boys' floor. The building I lived in was an all-boys dormitory, had no security. People could just walk in, get on an elevator, go to any floor they wanted, right? So there was tons of girls there visiting. And my room was on the top floor, 22nd floor, which was the, you know, what do you call it? It's the kind of place where people hung out. But there were about 10 rooms that were for, that were like dorm rooms. And they were like little apartments. They were quite nice. And so I go up there, and my mother made extremely, extremely clear that I had to be with Catholic boys, not Jewish, but Catholic boys. So all of the Catholics in that whole school were on that top floor. And they were all, not all, but majority mobsters' sons. And they were being sent to college to be college educated mobsters, like Michael in The Godfather, right? And I get up there, and there's a toga orgy going on in the main hangout room, right? And this guy comes over. Hey, it's like, my name's Otter, and I'm the kingpin here, and you're the new kid, right? And I said, yep. He goes, your room is at the very end. It's a corner room. It's got windows on two sides. You like it, and you don't have a roommate yet, so it's all to yourself. So I go there, and it's really nice, right? And that each room has their own toilet and sink, nice little room for privacy, right? And then at the end of each hallway, there are big things with showers. And so I put that down. I kind of start poking around in different corners of everything. And I go into where the big shower bathroom is, and it's really plush, and the whole thing is full of steam. And I kind of look through the steam, and there's a girl there going, and she is masturbating. And she looks up and sees me, and she goes, oh, and she comes all soapy and wet, and takes my clothes off and goes, why don't you give me a hand? And that was my first 40 minutes in college. And I came out like sopping wet and all sudsed up, and ready to go for the orgy. And she takes me out to the group, and we're having a great old time, and I got food, and I can't believe there's all this stuff here. And so this one guy says, so I hear you're like a genius, a scientist. I said, well, I don't know about that, but I like physics. I like electricity. I like, he goes, how about computers? I said, well, when I was a freshman in high school, I went to, I studied computer programming, basic and a few other things. And we compiled on punch cards, and he kind of goes, yeah, I heard. And he said, that priest you were studying with, he was Turing's boyfriend. And I said, how did you get all this? He goes, we have our ways. Anyway, this guy, he goes, listen, I'm, I have a job down at the school is now totally run by computers. I work in that place. If you want a job there, not a problem, get you in. And we run the school. I said, what do you mean run the school? I said, he goes, look at this, look at all this food. All I did was order it through the commissary and they delivered it, right? And we have got a department called Dr. Bellows Pneumatic Institute, and we study the use of nitrous oxide. I said, what? And he goes, yes. And we have a grant from the Justice Department to study what LSD and marijuana does to the psyche. So we get a ton of that from them. And we just went on and on about how they had wired themselves into the government, into the school, into everything. And they were just having a good old time. And so that's what my mother got me into, right? Thank you, Mom, right? So, I party down with this. That girl becomes my new girlfriend. And she goes, but it's not like I like you a lot. And I'll spend time with you because I like you a lot. But I have other boyfriends. Is that okay? I said, yeah, sure. She goes, and I take care of myself. I said, okay. So anyway, that was like the first day of being in college, right? And then, I went into the theater department and virtually because I was stuck there by all these people's boss, majority of the people felt ill will to me. There were all these professors and teachers and adjuncts who so much wanted to be in theater. And it was New York was city, Broadway was just right, just they could see it. The blinking lights, but they couldn't get to it. Me, I'm like 18. I've been working at it for 4 years. I know all these great people. That's how I got in this college. This lady who's like the political god of theater in New York just said he's going to college here, right? No tests, no this, no that. Just so. And then my mom, he's got to be with Catholic boys. I ended up in Animal House, but a higher grade of Animal House. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And thank you very much for being here. It is 32 minutes and 32 seconds, so I thought I'd say, don't believe a word I say. And I'm trying to weave stories in and out of what's going on in our present day. And like all roads lead back to Jack Kennedy's assassination, with me, all roads lead back to the ancient Irish Crone, right? And how did I get there, right? I got there because I got sent to Hofstra, right? And I have this relationship um, in the theater world. There are a lot of powerful people in the theater world who really liked me. I was their go-to guy. I would do, they say jump, I say how high, and they constantly put me into gigs that they needed done and they couldn't find anybody and they were technical more than social and political. They were technical. And so I kept being put in those positions, right? And starting out from when I was about 17, 16, 17, when I started working at the Fillmore East, right? And then I met Bob Goddard, who had owned Joshua Lights and Pig Light Show, and I was his electrician. Not just a roadie. I was his electrician, his ME, master electrician. I rewired the Fillmore East because it was 1920s was the last time that place was saw an electrician, and it was a fire trap, and I fixed everything. And so Lester ran in Manhattan Theater Club, city Escape, Theater for a New City, the Living Theater, the theater that did Man of La Mancha, Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall. Lester was, he did all the lighting for all these places and a whole bunch of Broadway theaters. And so anyway, I was his ME. I would come and make things so they would be safe. And that's how I met all these other people. That's how I met Lester Polikoff and Uda Hagen. Their school on Bank and 10th Street was a fire trap. And Lester took me in there and said, okay, take a look at everything they have and what needs to be upgraded and how it needs to be done and make a budget, right? And so he introduced me to, HB and Uda Hagen and Herbert Berghoff and he was like Santa Claus, HB, and Uda was like Natasha and Rocky and Bullwinkle, and they were great. They loved the fact that I just went in there and like within 2 or 3 weeks, everything kind of worked. Within 2 months, everything was safe and passed. They didn't have to worry about the inspectors coming in, right? And they could get insurance. They could, all that kind of stuff, right? So that was my doorway into the theater art world, right? And so there I was at Hofstra, and I was doing, and I was getting, I was hanging out with these guys. The best parties were going on up there, and they ran that whole place. Everybody, and they were making real serious bucks because all those boys who wanted to go to medical school and wanted to go to law school, they had to have a high GPA. So this guy who had the computers, he basically, it was $1,000 for every A semester. You want an A, even if you got a F, they would fix the computer. Somebody looked for your transcript, it would show you a 4.0, even though you were a 1.2 student. So. And that's how the world is run, my friends. And so there I was going through all of this, and it was, kind of fun. So in that theater department, everybody was kind of, but the lady at the top, my best friend, right? So I had no problems, right? Her assistant, who was really in charge of that whole school because Marion was all over the place in New York and around the world, she was like the secretary of the theater department. And she really loved me. And she had a beautiful daughter who knew like 7 languages and brilliant and kept having issues. And so she said she needs a someone solid like you in her life. So I met Elaine, and Elaine and I became best of buds and, paramours. But she really loved bad boys who would treat her bad. I mean, really treat her bad, beat her up, that kind of stuff. When we were physical, it was all, sweetness and love. And she loved that too, just kind of with me. But like my other girlfriend, and they became best buds. They were both bad girls. I have a novel called Bad Girls, and it kind of comes from the motif of bad girls, what makes a bad girl. So anyway, Elaine just kept. And no matter how I could, I'm a guy who tries to fix things. I can fix anything electrical. I can fix machines. I can fix anything technologically. But people, so I started studying psychology there. And so anyway, I got to a point where I was having a great time, but my heart was broken because Elaine was just, she had gotten pregnant by 3 scumbags, right? And New York City had, in the United States, it was kind of like what abortion is today. Certain states had legal, New York State had legal abortion. California, a few other states had it. If you had money and knew the right person. So I was involved in social activism. So, I'm like, 9. So I knew some doctors. And so I basically kept taking her to do that and paying for it too, and because she didn't want her mother to know, blah blah blah, because they're Catholic, Irish, blah blah blah, and so at the second semester, I'm waiting online to get my new courses, and this is my third semester really. And so first semester I did all this theater stuff, and it was like, ugh. And so I was a student, like 3.7, because the teachers tried to knock my grades down as any way they could, But I knew all this stuff. I didn't have to study or read the textbook. I knew it, right? Lester Pavlikov helped write Joe Malzino's book on theater lighting and design, right? The Bible of modern. Every college, even today, you study theater, you read Joe Malzino's book. Anyway, so I was living the life of debauchery. I was trying to put on some pounds because, man, the place always had food. I mean, the cafeteria was always bringing stuff up to our place because the guys could just put it on the computer and they would roll the stuff in, right? So, drugs, you name it. There was one guy who is so, nitrous oxide, Dr. Bellows Pneumatic Institute. We had a rubber room up there on our floor. And there were no balloons, no masks, no hoses on your nose, no, nitrous oxide, whipped cream, anything. You just walked in the room. It was a totally sealed room, and they gave the majority of the air to breathe, and there was nitrous oxide. You just walked in. I mean, it had a little bit of nitrous and a little oxygen, so you wouldn't die, but you got totally plastered by just going in there. And everything was a nice, comfy couch, but everything was, wrestling mats. So you could fall down, smash into the wall. There were no hard edges, no nothing to get hurt on. And so, I mean, that was my first 2 semesters, and I had a 3.7 average, and I didn't even have to. So my second semester, I took psychology, theology, philosophy, and those guys were too freaked out by what I was thinking about, and I would write these things, and they would not grade me on what I was writing or thinking or any of the above, but my grammar, right? And so they just give me C's, right? And then I would take it to the department chair of a thing, who was like, not teaching at all, but doing research or writing books, and he would say, well, you are far and above the guys who are teaching your course. Of course, they're going to feel threatened by a 17-year-old who is more mature and more experienced and knows people that they wish, and they never will. And so that's, of course, this school is 100% that. I am only here because it's a pretty campus. They give me a nice house. I a train ride into New York City, and they pay me really well to be the head of this, and I don't have to do anything because you should think of trying to go to another school that's a little more challenging. And I said, oh, okay. So I'm waiting online for my third semester. My parents have already put the $1,500, and that's what it cost, soup to nuts, to go to Hofstra in 1970. $1,500, for the classes and everything, and your room, and your meals, and your everything. $1,500, right? So I'm waiting online, and I get to the lady, and I go, so if I want to, and she goes, oh, wow. And because I kind of worked in the computer department, so this lady's at her little terminal, and so I go, she goes, oh, wow. So what are you signing up for this month? I said, so my parents pay already? She goes, oh, yes, the money's in your account. And I say, in my account. So do I have access to that? She goes, well, if right now, right here, at this minute, you want to say, I want to have a hold on this semester, I'm going to do something else, some research, or go someplace else. Yeah, you can get this money right here. I'll give you a voucher, go over to the pay people, and they'll give you the cash. I said, okay, do that. So I do that, and I go get $1,500, and I hit the road. First, I go back into Manhattan. I work some more. There are a few little projects I have. Couch surfing. So I am like no one knows where I'm at. I don't talk to my parents. I just, I go into New York. That's what I love about New York City. 17 million people. It's real easy to become invisible. So anyway, um, I'm doing that, and then um, someone says, there's people looking for you. I said, people? Who? People like police, but they're not police. They're guys in suits. Hmm. So I decide I take off. So I go visit my friends in North Carolina. I got a gig in High Point, North Carolina, being a photo journalist. My best friend from high school, we were both photographers, and he was great. He had been working at being a photographer since he was like 14. He got a job at that newspaper, which was a, large newspaper, one of the, top 20 newspapers in America, right? A state primary newspaper. And so anyway, his boss died. They gave him his boss job, and he just was sitting on his couch when the phone rang, and he goes, "Hey, you want a job?" I said, "Doing what?" "Photojournalist." So I did that, right? And I did that for about 9 months, and I was fitting in. And I was just about to get my national press pass when the chief of police came and visited where I was living, which was a black restaurant. And because I lived upstairs, that had been a speakeasy back in the 20s. And now the Pink Teacup, if you go Google Pink Teacup, High Point, North Carolina, I'm sure it'll pop up. It may still even be there. It was the best restaurant in the state. It was just, and everyone who was anybody ate there. And in shifts, there were shifts for black people, shifts for white people, and the mayor, the chief of police, owners of the banks and businesses would go have like a 10 a.m. Breakfast there, right? Whereas the working class stiffs, started showing up there at 4, right? Anyway, a big, amazing bakery. It had just the most amazing food. And the first kind of times I was in there with this police sergeant, and one of the first things, the police in High Point had no forensic anything, right? And and they had a lot of murders because a lot of people had money and they get drunk and shoot each other. So they would take pictures, and the newspaper did that for the police. And one of the first things I shot on that job, I was sent off to do this, and I had never done that. And the police sergeant, he looked at me and he took, so you're the new guy? Yes, Sarge. And he goes, in the back of my car are waiters. So I go in the back of his car, and the only waiters I knew guys with trays, but it was this box that said waiters, and they were like pants boots, like covered you all up, and they were white too. So he said, put those on and go in and take pictures. I went in there, started taking like Ouija, and it was hanging from the sides of. He said, no, you don't do that. And he goes, here's this box. These are numbers. Each, spot where, there's a hand here, there's a gun there, there's a blown out brain there. You put, you see there are about 5 1s, 5 2s, you put them at certain angles, and then you take the pictures, and then there's a reference point, right? So that's forensics, right? So he showed me how to do that, and then he took me, and we finished up around 3 in the morning. Like pie, yeah. He took me to the Pink Teacup, and Miss Johnson was there, and she ran the place, and it was just a few cops, me, and a few other people, a couple black guys, and the staff that was like baking for the morning and preparing food for the afternoon and dinner. Anyway, so he introduced me, so I get to know her, and blah blah blah. Second, third time I was in there with one of the cops, she was like getting all upset, and my refrigerator breaking, and so I kind of walk back there and go, what's wrong? This thing is either freezes it like a brick, or it's like I have to throw the food away. And I go, is this an ammonia mediated refrigerator? Because it was a gigantic walk-in refrigerator, and all these other refrigerators, boxes that were kind of hooked up in the same line. And she goes, yeah, how do you know? I said, well, just how it's done. She goes, you know anything about this stuff? I said, yes. She goes, I can't get anybody because it's all ammonia. Nobody wants to touch it because it's deadly. And they don't want it on their insurance and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, if you don't have to worry about insurance, if you just want it to work, I think I can fix it. So I said, "You got a screwdriver? You got a blowtorch? You got a this? You got yeah, I have all this stuff." So she got her little toolbox out, and I started. And what it was the thermostat at the part of the compressor was its most sensitive part was too close to the pipe. So I took the little blowtorch, kind of got rid of all the ice, and just moved it physically. Bent the wires and stuff just over here, so it wouldn't freeze up. And I said, "That's it." She goes, "That's it." I said, "Yep, that's it." I recycled it, and everything got cold, and and that was it. And then other things would break down, and I go fix it. By the third time I fixed something, she goes, "I want to show you something." She took me upstairs, showed me the speakeasy. She goes, "Nobody's up here. Do you want to live up here? And that way you can fix things whenever I need you. There it is, and you can always eat as much as you want. So eat as much as you want and live up here, right? But you got to keep it on the down low. White people aren't supposed to be living where black people are." I said, "Okay." So that's kind of how my life ran. So everyone, one morning I walked down, and there was what not only was it a speakeasy, it was a bordello. So and all the clothes and costumes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was a really amazing space, really, really fancy schmancy, high end. But nobody had been in it since like the 1920s. So or whenever you could drink again. Anyway, so and this was a place for white, powerful people, not your Joe average person. So anyway, I came down this staircase into the dining room and walked from the dining room into where the cafe was. And I was wearing a kimono from one of the girls, from the 1920s, and I had slippers on, and I came down, and the mayor was there, and the chief of police there, my boss, the editor of the newspaper was there, and a few other bankers. I knew all these guys because I would take pictures of all their Christmas cards, their kids, whatever. Anyway, so I mean that was mostly my thing, and then working for the cops a bit, and different news things. They would send me off on news things, not in town so much, but things within their perimeter. Anyway, so I was walking down, and everyone's looking up at me, and right, and I sit down with the mayor and all these guys in this kimono, and the mayor goes, "Listen, Al, you're living upstairs, aren't you?" I go, "Yep." "Well, first of all, you shouldn't even told me that. You have to be diplomatic and lie. And if you said no, I would just take it at face value, right? But you're an honest guy. You always tell me. I asked you that question because I know you're going to tell me the truth because I've known you now 4 months, and you never lie. It's like amazing, and you take responsibility for everything you do. That's why we like you, and that's why we love you because you really, not only take the pictures we want, you come over to our house and fix the doorbell when nobody else will. So we love you, but if there were more of you, we'd have to kill you, right? So just be a little more circumspect." I said, "Yes, sir." Right. So anyway, life went on, and one day, so I'm fitting in great, and they're gonna instead of my temporary police press pass, that's from that police, they sent all the paperwork into the FBI to get a national, so they can send me to DC and I can go talk to the president, right? A national press pass, and it was like it gave you a certain level of security access, right? So what happened to my glasses? So the sheriff, chief, well, actually chief of police. Oh, nobody's watching. Basically came in and said, "Hey Al, we sent all the paperwork in, and we got a phone call from the feds, and they want to. They told us to hold you." And he goes, "What did you do? I can't imagine you do anything wrong. What issue did you bend? Whose nose did you tweak?" And I said, it's a lot. It's a long story." So he goes, "Well, I know that you didn't murder anyone because they just." I said, "Well, do you have any warrants on him?" And they go, "No, we just want to talk to him." And so that, to me, I don't like the feds. And to me, that means you did nothing wrong. They just you tweaked someone's nose, and I'm glad you did. So I would suggest you go hide again. So I went to Duke University, hid there for about 4 months. until again I got a gig where I was working for an entity called the SEAL Corporation. You hear of the SEAL teams that came out of that, and they were from Stanford, and they were a corporation. So all the research, and they were building super soldiers. Once I kind of got into what they were doing, because I was making apparatus for them, it was I was making them sensory deprivation tanks, scalar generators, a number of other technologies, which most an orgone box, things of that nature. And so I basically listened to them and got involved. And then at a certain point, they said, we're doing highly sensitive work for the government, so we need you to be cleared. So we're going to put all this paperwork. And I said, oh, you guys can keep all the toys I made you. I got to go. And they said, why? I said, well, because if you really need to officiate me, put me on, sign on the dotted line, there's going to be a lot of people nosing around in your work. And I don't know if you want them, I mean, what do you think of the FBI? And, so I said, well, you can just, pay me what you owe me on all the toys I made you, and I'll be on my way. And that has been my life's scenario, right? So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's been, how many minutes now? 56 minutes. So, this is, I got 3 thumbs up. Thank you. I have, one of the reasons I came back to the Deep Green is that all the places I was going to be able to stay for free fell through. 1, 2, 3. I went 3 places that you got lined up, and they fall through. Not for any of my reasons, but because the universe had changed. It to me meant, and my car almost got smashed by 2 different trees in 2 different scenarios, not just one with 2 trees, but one where a tree virtually fell out of the sky right in front of this tremendous crash explosion sound, and I stopped. And then this tree came crashing down like a foot, in front. And one of the branches kind of hit my windshield, and it just put a ding in it. But a couple days later, the crack happened. So anyway, a couple days before that, I was at a friend's house at a party, and I parked right in front. Oh, look, a parking spot right in front of their house. So I parked in there. This guy came running out. "God, it's my parking. I've been waiting for it. Come on." So I said, okay, no problem. So I pulled out and kind of parked in the back. And so, yeah, I had to walk, a football field, but that's no big deal. It wasn't snowing or raining. It was a nice day, so not a problem. So I go to the party. And I'm in there talking to people and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, another smashing sound occurs. I look out the window, and there in the parking spot where my car would have been, that guy who screamed at me, his car got hit by a tree. So, to my mind, then the next day, my windshield cracked. And so I said, okay. And then the 3 places I was going to stay all collapsed. And I said, obviously, the universe wants me to go back to the Deep Green and be safe. So something strange is going to occur, in the next, So I was going to be away till March. So between now and March, something strange. So, so I spent, $200 that I didn't have getting to where I got, and then coming back, right? And so, because I was expecting to be able to get to New York and plug into things where I could probably make money, right? So I couldn't, right? And so I'm back here. So this is in the new series, so this is part 1, getting you up to me being an island, right? So I left Duke and went back to New York because New York's a big place. I can hide in plain sight, right? So I started getting gigs, working in theaters and doing this and doing that, and people start telling me, "There's guys in suits looking for you all the time." I'd say, "Well, he was here a couple days ago, but now he's gone. You just missed him," and that was been my thing. So there's somebody looking for you with suits. I'm like, okay. So I bumped into Lester. Bumped. I went to his place, his building. He had a very nice building um, on the east side around 36th Street. Really nice building on Lexington Avenue. And so that's where we're just down the street from Billy Kluver's sister, Olga, had her confectionery slash oddity shop, right? And it was very, if you've ever seen any of the Marvel movies with Doctor Strange and he has his like special clubhouse in New York City, that was taken straight from Madame Blavatsky's and Olga Kluver's Odyssey shop, right? And I'll go further into that in this series, right? And this is just the first. Good morning, good evening, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And a number of you have been coming in and out. And this is a series I'm going to be talking about the old crone and what she taught me and on what path she sent me on, from what path I had come from. So this show of this last has been how I kind of got into Ireland. So it was there, during the Vietnam War. I was ripe for picking to go into, the military industrial complex and fight for Wall Street in Vietnam. But I kept staying. I didn't break any laws. I didn't burn my card. I didn't do anything, except they could never find me. Right? I was always on the bop, right? So I was at Lester's house, and there is Marion, right? And so Marion goes, "So Al, where have you been? You left school without really saying anything." I said, "Well, I just." She goes, "I understand. You know, most people would of not your integrity would have. You had it made. You had it wired in. You would have 4 years of totally having a party and having a college degree, and you wouldn't have to do anything. But you wanted a value out of your college experience. So after experiencing the party as much as you could do, and all the other interesting things that Hofstra had to offer in 2.5 semesters, you understand. That's probably a wise move. And I told her the story. I told her and Lester's story. She goes, "Well, now you're back here, and you've already saw a lot of people that those guys in suits talk to. They're gonna figure out you're back here and come looking for you. So why don't you go back to college?" I said, "Where do you want to send me?" "Not Hofstra." And she goes, "Oh, do I have a place for you?" I said, "Where's that?" She goes, "Ireland." She goes, "You have a passport, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I've had a passport since I was like 12." And so, you know, she goes, "Well, I was informed that the Irish Theatre School in Dublin had, an opening, and they wanted someone from New York to come because there's so many Irish people, and you're Irish, you got a little Irish in you, and you fit the bill. And I was looking for someone, and here you are. You're the person I'm going to send." And so I'm putting in the paperwork, and why don't you come and stay at my place? Because she had a really nice condo. And so I said, "Sure." So I stayed there. She had one of the apartments, really great apartments, right on Fifth Avenue, right where Washington Square is. She lived in the same building that my photo teacher, Lisette Modell, and her husband, Cartier-Bresson, who started Vogue. And he got a Nobel Prize for his picture of the dying soldier in the Spanish Civil War. Anyway, so I went there and visited all the people I knew in that building, and she got all the paperwork in. And then about a week, I was sent to Ireland, right? And so I land in Dublin. I go to Trinity, and Trinity is a great school. Just so I go to and the Irish theater. It was called the Irish Celtic Theater, traditional Celtic theater, right? So they were based at Trinity, but their facility was downtown Dublin, right? Almost across the street from the post office, not really, but down in a bit. A beautiful, beautiful building. And they sent me, they said, well, you're going to stay in Trinity in this school of the Irish history and et cetera. And do you speak Gaelic? I go, no. Do you do this? No. Do you know this? No. I said, well, she goes, before you can do anything with us, you're going to have to go to them and, study this history so you can be at least aware of all the traditions, all of the stories, all the myths, and you can work. I said, but, she goes, well, we actually don't do the theater that this building is. Yes, it's called after us, but it's really used a great deal by other theater companies, right? It's all the other theater companies in Dublin uses, right? We, on the other hand, we do all our our acting and shows out in the country, out in fairy circles and Gaelic stone temples and all, bee house, all of this traditional stuff that you'll learn about, right? And so we don't really need your skill set as electrician. And the people in all of the trades here are in unions, and they're very, very, very particular, especially somebody from New York. No, they wouldn't like that. So you just go there and learn Gaelic and learn the traditions and learn the stories and come back to us, and we'll be happy to put you in there, because Marion Tulin, who we have great respect for, says that you're a great actor, you're great, whatever you do, you're great at, and you're a team player and all the rest. I said, okay, sounds good to me. So this one guy walks me back and takes me to, where I'm going to stay, and I got a nice little apartment in the Gaelic Historical Anthropology Department, right? And that's where I met Archie, right? And so he gets me set, and he goes, "Oh, okay, you're going to be kind of special. You're just going to be my assistant. So I run this whole place. So you're now my assistant. So you're like so no one can really question you. What are you doing here? Who are you? Why are you here? You just say that I'm Archie's assistant, right? So that's what I was, and he was, he had gotten, he had more doctorates than you could name, and he was Scottish. His father, his whole lineage was English, dukes and earls and barons, but he had been, and they had a castle in Ireland, and he came to Ireland and went to, first he went to Oxford, then he went to Trinity, and then he fought in the First and Second World War, and well, not fight. He was, a driver of ambulances, and so anyway, and in the Second World War, he was in Ireland, so he didn't go back to England, so he didn't get pushed in. He, was a non-combatant. So anyway, we're doing that, and he gets me my own carol in the reserve library, and that's when I realized, or I'm told, that the reserve library in Trinity is the oldest library in the world, consecutive, been there forever, right? Before the Vatican had their library, right? Before England had their big whoop-de-doo library. Now, there were a lot of people in England who had libraries, but nothing like this. And so they had a good chunk of Alexander's library, because the library in Alexandria wasn't just in one place, it was all over the place. So they had a nice chunk there. So, I'm studying, Archie gets me a Carol, which is like a little office, right? It's like the size of this car, and but it's got a good deal of privacy and all kinds of nooks and places to put books. And you got this big table that you can put out all the books you're reading in one place, so you don't have to keep moving them around. And that's why it's the reserve library. Right? So he has gotten all of these books for me to read, and I have to read them with a mask on and gloves, so I don't, gook anything up, because these are old books, right? Anyway, so and my Carol is part of the larger kind of, you come into the reserve library and there's this big thing where the librarian's got her desk and a card catalog and all this other kind of stuff in the background, and over there's this glassed in thing where they're fixing books up, and over there is something else, and over here is all the Carols. There are about 40 of them, right? And I got one where it's kind of right there on the main drag. It's pretty bright. It's but the other guys who had more clout had their Carols deeper into the darkness, so they could have they could do whatever the heck they want. This one guy, he turned it into his apartment. He was staying there. Anyway, I had an apartment, so I basically I'm looking at this book, right, and I'm turning it around, and because Archie, the first few weeks he gave me this cow, but I was in his office and he was showing me the ropes of how to look at these books, right? And he goes, first you have to realize there's a big difference between the academy and academia, and what a scholar is. A scholar is somebody like Sophocles or Plato or he named off a whole bunch of Japanese, like Lao Tzu, the art of war, and different folk. Buddha, Vishnu. Anyway, Jesus. These are all scholars. Anyway, so he's showing me the ropes of scholardom and not academia, and scholardom is to understand, and academia is just to pass with a grade, to matriculate, to get a degree. That's academia. To be part of the academy, to have a job, and to be owned, basically. So there I was in there in my little Carol, and I'm turning this book around because Archie said, first of all, you'll have to understand which way the thing is written. Because this ain't going to be in English, and not even going to be in Latin or Greek or anything. It's going to be in some squirrely language that it's got a lot of dust on it, right? And there aren't too many people who can read it, right? So, first thing you have to do is you have to find the key, meaning the key will represent which way you should look at the book and which way the reading goes from one end to the other, and the most important thing, where you can go find the Rubik's Cube of deciphering this, what is written, because it may be written in some very ancient thing that no one can read, but it is, every alphabet is written, every alphabet is written numerologically, like Hebrew. Every letter represents a number. So you have a word, it's an algorithm, it's an equation right there. It's a bunch of numbers. And anyway, so that's what I'm there. I'm not really supposed to try to translate anything. All I'm supposed to do is find the key, find what translating stone I can use to try to cipher out what is said here. And that's all. I'm not trying to really understand what this text is. I'm here to just see if I can even read it or figure it out, or and all these things have already been done, but Archie wants me to do it on my own. I go get the crib notes, right? So I'm doing it, and he's set out a bunch of books for me to do this one. He's got the librarian to put them there, and the librarian's very sweet and very nice. There's the head librarian. This is a fluid gendered person, and then there's two women who really run the place, and then a whole nice crew underneath. And everyone is, and these are scholars. These aren't academics, so they're not after each other's throats. So so I'm at my little thing and I'm moving stuff around and I have a smell. What's that smell? It smells like a dumpster. I look over and there's this lady coming through with a trolley, a little basket on wheels, and she's dressed in garbage bags, right? And she's got schmutz all over her. And the people at the desk, come to her like she is the queen. They like virtually are bowing and kissing the ring, and and I'm just like kind of looking over my shoulder at this, and she immediately looks at me and goes, "What are you looking at?" Like, "Ooh, nothing, nothing. It's all good, right?" So I go back to what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden that smell is really strong, and I turn, and her face is like right here. Ah, you're a smart young monkey, aren't you? You're looking for the key. And she goes, "It's right there." It's always, you know, she gave me four different angles to look at something from. She goes, "You go to the center point, and if you ever look at a like people who are blind, right? So on keypads, on the ATM, on phones, there is a center point on the keys, and you can feel a little nub there, and that's called the center point. And they got that from these ancient texts. So there's a center point. Again, she goes, "Put your on your hand and see how." So it's yes, this is lumpy paper, but there's a point where you can feel right there, and then take your most sensitive finger and kind of, and that's the center point. And then this amount of degrees you start looking, right? So there it was, right there was the key. So I kind of turned it around, saw where it was, saw what it looked like, saw where it was pointing, saw that it had a certain Latin scripture upside down. So I said, "Oh, so I can go get the Latin dictionary to what this is. What is this?" She started to laugh. "Well, that's the interesting thing. I'm not going to tell you. See how you do." Anyway, she goes, "You know, you would learn a lot more if you came and studied with me and up at my lodge, right, at the Deep Green." And that's why I call my lodge the Lodge in the Deep Green, right after her. And I go, "Oh, okay, that sounds interesting." But I have this whole pedigree behind me being here and why I'm here, and I don't know if I can just not be here and still uh, be fine. She goes, "Well, you're in a foreign land. Wherever you're running from, they can't catch you here. And when you come to my place, they'll never find you." I said, "Oh." And she goes, "I've been twigged to you because Archie told me about you. I know your whole story." And now she's talking and saying, so talking like that. She's like talking like a real person. And she goes, "So go see Larry, the guy who's in charge of, this whole Trinity, the president of this university. Tell him that I sent you and that I'm asking for you to be my Padawan. He'll know what I'm talking about." Right? So I go, "Okay." So she goes, "Do that today, right? And then you'll have dinner with Archie and he'll tell me and I'll come and get you." Okay. So I do. Put all the books away. She goes off and does something else, and by the time I'm ready to go, the head lady, not the trans fluid guy, came up to, because he was never there. I don't know what he did, but anyway, um, she goes, what did the crone want? A crone? Yeah, it's a crone. She's immortal. Immortal, meaning it's like live forever. Yeah, she's like, you can't believe how old she is. And I said, "Well, she invited me to her lodge to be her Padawan. What's that?" She goes, "Really? Oh, that's amazing. Go, 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 go. Don't stay here. Forget this place. That's where to go. If you want to learn about this stuff, she's the one." So I go, "Okay." So I go see Larry and knock on his door, and he's like, blowing bubbles, and Bubbles had to leave then, and so um, I go, "Hey, the old crone sent me, and yes, I heard she wants you to be her Padawan. Oh, go." And he says, "I've been here 50 years, a student, teacher, administrator, then president. She's never talked to me once." and she just came to you and invited you to study with her, forget this place. Go there. I'll take care of all the paperwork. You know, you're doing a research project, not a problem, right? I mean, you were supposed to be at that other place, then you came here, and then now we're sending you there. So not a problem. We got you covered. So I went back, had dinner with Archie, because my little apartment was next to his whole suite. He had a gigantic, beautiful place there at Trinity. I don't even know if they do that anymore. So I because each school was like a different. I mean, the university was broken up in all these schools, and there's the Maid Quad, and they had all these things, and you had different doors to come into. I mean, it was truly an amazing. It still is an amazing university. And if you go online and look at pictures, go to their library, and they have this gigantic hall. It's like a church, like one of a great cathedral of knowledge. And in the different, there's this big long thing, and there are all these places you can read, and there's stacks of books, but you see these different doorways going off into different directions, and those are the other libraries, right? And they have two reserve libraries, and the one I had access to, and this other one, which was more modern. Anyway, I had dinner at Archie's, and I didn't have to tell him, and everything was like. Everyone knew everything. So you're going to go, and it's all set, and she's going to come pick you up at your apartment, or go to the gate, where it comes into our school. She'll be waiting there with a car. She got a car, yeah. Oh, does she have a car? I said, what kind of car she got? She goes, 12-cylinder, fire engine red, Jaguar, XK, whatever, right? 12 cylinders. This thing was like a rocket ship. And so I don't even know if they make those anymore. But anyway, I think it was 1950 something. Right? The best, at the top of the zenith of that car, she had one. Right. So 10 o'clock shows up. He and I had breakfast. We went to because the dining hall for most of the meals we had, we either went to restaurants down in the booze section or in his apartment, but we would go to breakfasts were best at the dining hall for our school. They had a really nice breakfast. So anyway, we had breakfast, then we went to the thing, and she was no longer dressed in garbage bags. She was dressed in this super duper. I mean, the car was fire engine red. She was like on fire orange red jumpsuit. World War I, like totally covered her body like a second skin, no coats, no nothing. So she was a pretty curvy lady for being ancient, right? And it was like a onesie. So the whole thing, it like came over her head, and she had goggles, right? It's almost a convertible. Anyway, so we talk a little bit with Archie. We jump in. She goes, I got some goodies in the car and a thermos of really good coffee. So off we go. So we say goodbye to Archie. Off we go. And so basically there's a river and the sea where Dublin is, right? And it was initially, where boats came, and it was, a trading place, fishing place, blah, blah place. And then the English made it their number one place, blah, blah, blah. And the Romans, blah, 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 right? So it's a big city, and they have different sections. So there's the section that was high up in the thing, that's where first the Romans, and then the English, and where the rich people are up there, right? And there is the major avenue called, what's it called? Not Collins, it'll pop into my mind. But it was where the Romans and the English, all the Celts would be spiked. They would be piked. They would stick this big tree and have a big point on it and stick their butt right there and pull them all the way down until they came out their mouth. and they left them there until they rotted and fell apart. That was like to motivate the public to obey. And O'Connell Street, that's it. The main drag, O'Connell, and the big post office is right there, and that's where the revolution was. Blah blah blah. Right. So we are. So at one end is it goes up to this circle, and the road goes up to where all the rich people live. The other one goes out into where Trinity is, and then the other one kind of goes over to where the fishing village was, and all of the industry. And so all the people who were refining stuff, people who were distillers, making sugar and making this and making that, were all over there back in the day. The distillers were still there, right? Patties and all the really famous single malt Irish liquor is there. And there are all these kind of bars, and it's where everyone has their little neighborhood place they hang out. And you can kind of get food, pub food, and then off of that there are these kind of interesting little alleys that are like little towns to themselves, right? So anyway, Archie and I would walk down, and he had his favorite pub, which wasn't that far from Trinity, like 2 or 3 blocks. But that road went a good 10, 15 miles. And it kind of went over here to where it became the big river. And then it went that way, and that was the back way out to the west coast of Ireland from Dublin, right? And so instead of going up the main drag and all through all that and they didn't have highways. Around Dublin, they had a highway going out, and then it went into this small road that went along the west coast, and it went to Limerick, and at the end of it was Galway, but Limerick was at this end, and Galway was on that, and Skibbereen and a few other cities were in between. And so we kind of, go and wind our way out that back way out. As soon as we pop out past that highway, because O'Connell Street went onto this highway that was a little bit of a ring around Dublin, but basically went out to the airport. The major highway went out to the airport. So this kind of cut just where that ring road was, just there, and then went towards Limerick. As soon as we hit that, we were like, she was doing a zillion miles an hour. And so, there she is leaning against the car when we see her. And I come over, and she handed my own goggles. She goes, "You'll need these." So we get in, zing, and she is flying. And we zip through suburbs of Dublin, and now we're in the country lanes, and there's not really. And then she kind of takes a road off the main road that goes up and down and around and through little villages, and she's kind of pointing things out, and sacred sites and circles and all kinds of stuff like that. And she was saying, "Oh, over there is one of Archie's pyramids." Archie said that pyramids were everywhere on the earth, right? He wrote it before any of those guys about, the gods came from space. He wrote on it about it in the 1920s, right? And everyone laughed at him. But because he was rich and, came from a powerful family, he could pretty much do whatever heck he wanted. So we're flying through this stuff, and we stop off at Limerick, and the baked goods that one of the boxes she brought into this lady's, and this lady was definitely a gnome. A little short lady who looked like, she had all kinds of things on her nose, and she always talked like, and she goes, "Oh, my sweetheart," that's what she called. And the old Crone had a real name, which I won't tell you at this moment, but she would, this old lady who was way older than the old Crone, and the old Crone was very much like Gandalf the Grey, right? But she was, more the white. She had come into her own, but she had, up until I don't know when, she was like Gandalf the Grey, right? And she still was a little bit, but more, responsible, right? Once she became immortal, she became more responsible. but she was still, you know, liked good drink, good fuck, good book, good conversation, good friends, right? And so, and she really took care of her friends and the people she cared about. So we stopped and we had tea with this lady, and this lady had 3 pots on her wood stove, right? And we walked in, we talked a little bit, we introduced, and then they had to talk about stuff. And so the gnome said, "Honey, sweet," no, she called me sweetie. Sweetie, can you go outside and split up some wood? Because that's my wood stove for my kitchen, and see the little pile of wood. That's how I need it cut up. And she goes, "If you go out there," I said, "You got an axe or a maul?" I said, "No, no, I have an electric drill that has a big thing. It's like to grind a hole in metal." And she goes, "It works really great. You just kind of push, turn the drill on and just push it into the log, and it splits it. No, no muss, no fuss. I can do it. But why don't you just go out there and here's a cup of this tea, and it'll energize you, right?" So I drink it, and oh, that's pretty nice. And then she goes, "Have one of these cookies." I did. Right away, I was like, like I'm stoned, okay, but not really stoned, just energized and ready to cut a lot of wood. I get that in my conscious intent. I am right. So I go out there and I'm zipping away, and about, I don't know, 30 minutes go by. I've filled a couple boxes. She said there are a bunch of boxes. I'll just fill them. They fit in there. Fill it to the top. And it was really easy. Now I see on the internet, brand new, this drilly thing to split wood. This is back in 1970, 71, right? And it looked like she had been using it since World War One. So anyway, nothing new under the sun. So we have that, and we have a little tea, little sandwiches, and we get back in the Jaguar, and we zip up to the Ring of Kerry, and we go way out to that, and we go visit a friend of hers who is a Navy guy, and he lost his legs in World War II, or Korea. I'm not quite sure, but he's still wearing his uniform. She calls him Captain, and he's got pictures from everything you could ever think of. And he was an aviator, and he knew all these great aviators. And anyway, so I'm an airplane guy, so we start talking about airplanes and this and that, and she just sits back and kind of nods out, and with a smile that her friend is being entertained by this young man who knows everything or a lot about airplanes, and this guy is more animated than he has been in a long time, and happy. So it's getting to be around, I don't know, we left at about 8 in the morning, and it's getting to be now 2 o'clock, and it's springy time. So it's not wintry sun, so it's springy sun. And so we get back on that road, and we are flying. I mean, flying. So we do about 60 miles in less than an hour. We are, and there's not too much traffic on this road. A couple of tractors, and she's right by them, right? A couple of times, we're passing a tractor trailer, what they call a big lorry, um, you know, going up a hill, and so we're flying, and we go. There's a Skibbereen's it's a county seat, so they actually kind of have a ring road around. You don't have to ride through the city. You can if you want to, but she goes, we'll visit that later. Woo! We go around it, and as soon as we're outside of Skibbereen, the road goes back towards the coast, and this other road kind of um, goes up, and it parallels the coast road, but it starts going up into the hills. Goes up, 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 right? And I'll look for some pictures of that road. I have them, and so we're zipping up that road, and it is like not even big. As soon as we start really going up sides of mountains, the road is not, it's just big enough for this Jaguar. It's only one lane. It's like 3/4 of a lane, right? And we're flying up this sucker. And I go, "Does anyone come down this road?" She goes, "Oh yes." And she goes, "See that?" Right? And we're going to zip right by it. And she goes, "That's where you pull in to let another car pass, right? And if they're closer, they have to back up to it. If you're closer, you have to back up to it." Anyway, so we're flying up this thing, and I said, "But we're going pretty fast. You can't even, on this road, does this along the mountain. I can't even see what's up there. Because, well, I know what's up there. And if there's anybody, I'll pull in one of these things, or I'll go faster. so she starts to go faster, and we are really. I mean, there's mountain here, cliff here, and they changed the driver guy is now on the mountainside, and I'm in the passenger seat, looking like I don't even see the road. It's like I see air. Like if I open up the door, I say, ah! Right? She goes, don't open that door. Wear your safety belt. So anyway, we're flying up the thing, and we zip up to the top, and about a tenth of a mile, a gigantic lorry is just about, and she just zing right by them, right, passing him on the wrong side, just because he's already over here, zing, right, and and we keep going, and we stop at this, not even a village, it's a stone building that's a pub. It's it's like they don't have Airbnbs, they call B&Bs, bed and breakfast, and a kind of general store and a post office and a gas pump, right? And so she, flies up there, stops in front of the gas pump. This kid comes, takes the cap, starts pumping, and says, "Hey, Crone." Hey, Billy. And so we go in. It's Tommy, and so we go into Tommy, and Tommy's in there, and it's like, here's the post office, and the post office is also the bank, right? Post office, bank, and then the general store thing where the cash register is, and then 98% of the rest of the building is this gigantic pub. It's got a little stage at the end, and about 20 tables. I could fit maybe between 10 and 6 people each table, so you could stick a lot of people in there. And so anyway, he walks in, he turns around, and he takes down a bottle of Paddy's Irish whiskey and fills out 3 glasses. And we each take it, and we go over to a table where it's like a booth, so it's got a nice cushy seat. So we sit there, and she tells the story of this guy and that she's known him since she delivered him, because she's a midwife, right? And so, and she tells all the embarrassing thing about when he was born and how big his penis was and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so he's a big man, and he's chortling away, and he looks at me, he goes, "Well, if you're with her, you're my friend. You heard it. She brought me into life." So, and everyone around here was brought into life by her. Everyone. She is, so you better, do what she says. Do not, make us rue the day that you showed up. Right? Some people do come up here, and she knows better, and it never gets to be a big deal, but she seems to like it. I mean, she kind of went into the store to get something, and he's talking to me like this, right? Don't disappoint her. Don't make me have to get angry with you. I'm still a little guy. I mean, I'm starting to grow. I'm not the peanut I was, but I'm not gigantic man like him. So, I mean, this guy's like an ox. I mean, he's got muscles. He's not fat. He's just gigantic, So, she comes back, and she's already put her stuff, or had, Billy take the stuff to the car and put it away. And so we and he's got her mail for her, and we get in the Jaguar, and we don't speed away. We take a nice. So she's like showing me how beautiful everything is, and we're going. And this road is like going up the top of this mountain, and there's nothing. It's like, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. It's like you can see where this is top of the mountain, and on the other side there's a cliff, and it goes down. There's this road. It's not like the road we just came up. This ain't going nowhere, right? And so we get almost up to the top. Crone stories, yep. And so we probably got another 4 or 5 miles to go up to the top up there, and it's like she's going to drive into the woods, right? Because this big, dark, green monster of woods. And in Ireland, they really don't have this arboreal forest. But here it does on top of a frigging mountain, and you can't see what that is. The trees are so big, so tall, you can't see into it because you're right at the bottom of it here, and the trees are way up here, so you can't see like what's over there, right? So we're driving and we're heading towards the top of this mountain where it doesn't even look like you can turn around up there. And all of a sudden, she drives into the woods. I kind of do this, and there's a road there, but it's so dark you don't see it. Right? No one rides on it unless you know it's there. You can't find it, and so she just drives right into it. And she's doing. And it's not potholed at all. It's like it's covered in leaves and pine needles, and it's just there's nothing. And we drive on it like a lot, maybe I don't know, at least a couple of miles, if not more. And we pop out and we go over a stone bridge, and there's a bigger than a stream, smaller than a river, but rushing water, kind of going that away, and it is right around this big valley. It goes down and around, but not really deep valley, but it's like a valley. There's trees all over this side and up there, and then the other third is looking out into towards the ocean, right? And it must be at least I don't know, 1,000 acres of valley or bigger. And the road parallels the stream on this side, and there are little ponds and bigger ponds and small lakes every so often going off into that forest. And you can see the forest is not like the big, thick arboreal forest, but looks like it may have been logged at some point, but it's on the side of this mountain, so it's too tough to cut those trees down. But there's all kinds of rocky things and waterfalls and streams and ponds and lots of water over there. And the road goes all the way around, and right there's, and as soon as we popped out, you could see the farm. It was like a good 5, 10 miles, no, 5 miles from popping out of the woods. And beautiful farmhouse, 3 beautiful barns, a bunch of smaller outbuildings, really gorgeous garden that and a pond, 2 ponds in front of it, and one a big one and one looked like it had a little dock. It looked like you could you went swimming there. That was like the swimming hole, and the other looked like you could fish there. But they were connected, so I'm sure you could fish off the dock, which I did later on. And I'm not a great fisherman, right? I have a lot of friends who are fishermen. I go out with them. They catch a bunch of fish. I catch nothing. I'm standing right next to them. I got the same hook, the same line, same bait. Right. So I'm not a fisherman. But in that place, on that dock, you just throw any hook in there and a fish would bite it. Or I would take a net and I'd look and I just scoop up a fish. Right? So we pull in, and so this is visualize right behind, so all around is this beautiful farm, right? The barns are over here, and the water is further down from that. The big garden is over there, and there's a smaller garden and a flower garden kind of in the back of the house, herb and flower garden in the back of the house, lots of sun. And it kind of goes up and then kind of comes over and goes down over to where the mountain is, and there's the ocean. You don't quite see upstairs. So the road comes here, and there's a barn here where equipment is, and other vehicles are, and a workshop is, and a hay loft without a hay in it, but it's a pretty big barn, right? It's the biggest barn of all the barns, right? And that's like over there, and so there's a big circle driveway and a road that kind of goes up towards where that is. Another road on the other side of that barn going over towards where the fields are, and another road where there's another barn with animals in them, right? So anyway, we pull up the house, and you come around, and bingo, there's this gigantic porch, right? And it's almost like a Greek southern, kind of big house in the southern plantation. It's like that, but made out of stone. And so there's a big porch all around um, the three sides of the house, right? Big porch, right? And above it is another porch on the second floor um, that is covers this. So if it's raining, that top, right? And then above that is a third porch to the third floor, um, and that kind of goes into the roof line, right? So it's quite impressive, and it's for maybe the front is maybe 30 meters, which is pretty big, of the porch, and the house is maybe 5 meters on either side, a little shorter because the porch is going that way, right? So maybe 10 meters. So maybe the house is 30 meters wide, and the porch that you walk up to is like, right? And most of that porch has steps going up to it, not just like one little place where the front thing, but a good portion of that is steps. The end parts aren't where they kind of go that way, right? And it's all stone, right? And so it's gray granite stone with really crystalline mortar, as chinking, the mortar between the stones. And that's like glowing like crystals. It's quite odd, right? And the columns, like the Greek columns, are made out of this Greek, not Greek, but this crystalline material. It's almost like I don't even know what it's like, but it's very reflective. So the columns all around are like, woo, this kind of offset gray stone, but in front of the columns are like, woo, and the mortar is also not woo, as because those columns are ridiculously impressive, and it has stuff growing like ornamental kind of viney things growing on the columns. They're not kept immaculately clean, but they're so shining through all that greenness. It was just really okay. So she pulls up in front of that. We get out. We walk into the house, and there's this like vestibule, but really big, right? And it goes into a great room, right? And over here is a living room. Over here is a dining room, but dining hall, like you could feed a lot of people. Living room is you could probably sit uncomfortably. A lot of couches, and they all have these like little window seat things, all in the living room. So there's a lot of places to sit in the sun, and a lot of tables, a lot of desks, and one whole wall is covered in books. Doorway, you walk in, gigantic library, almost as big as the one at Trinity. Just it goes forever, right? And that's when I saw that. That's when I kind of in that living room there was a beautiful French door that went out to three like there was French doors that opened this way, but the two doors that opened this way had hinges on them, so they were like four doors. So big opening when you opened it up, big opening that you went out to the deck there, the thing that you stand on the outside. And so that big opening, so the outside was on the inside, right? So anyway, I looked down between that bookcase, that doorway, and the never-ending library. Then I went out there and I looked down at the end of the deck there, and so the deck looked like it's maybe 15 meters, but I walk back and look down the library, and it looks like infinity. It's like, okay. So then we kind of walk through the great room, which was like a ballroom. It had a stage, right? And she goes over, and there's this whole wall of, and this is 1969, 70, and she's got all these records and cassettes, right? So she puts on a jazz record, and it was the guy had a Jamaican English accent, so it wasn't from America. It was from Caribbean English record. I had no idea who this guy, but he was great. He was like unfriggin' believable. And so she's putting on that, and she's kind of dancing around the dance floor, and she goes, "We have some great parties here." And the sound system is like none other you heard. I mean, she hits a button, the thing lights up. She a really nice dual turntable. She takes this thing out and puts it there, puts it on there, and speakers like you can't believe. JBLs everywhere, and it's just like the tunage is amazing. Just anyway, so I kind of swing my hips, and she swings hers, and she giggles, and she goes, "We'll dance later." So, she turns the music down, still playing, and she gives me the tour. And we go into the dining room off that. Like I said, it was like a dining hall. And then you went into another dining room, which was like more the day to day dining room, right? And there were tables everywhere with books and magazines and papers and shelves of books and stuff. And then off towards the kitchen, there was like a pantry, right? And off the pantry, there was like a thing where it was a cool room, right? And you went down steps into the ground, and there were all kinds of plants and things that were prepared and ready for something, and little things of meat and cheese and other stuff. And there were a couple refrigerators down there, but they weren't electric. They were just another cooling-ish box, right? And I just kind of looked down there and said, And then in the pantry, there was another one. That was a place. It was like a herbalist's um, apothecary, right, where you make things, right. And there's a doorway that goes out to that deck, and steps go down to that beautiful garden, that flower garden and herbal garden that's all right there. So you just kind of walk out a door, go down a couple of steps, and there this beautiful garden was, right. And they have chairs everywhere and all kinds of beautiful things to sit and be comfortable, and water everywhere gurgling and spurting and spouting, and everyone's getting a drink from something. So anyway, and then we go into the kitchen, big kitchen, right? And then down into the everyday kitchen, right? And there's a hallway that goes to the back of the whole place, takes you into the library, takes you into kind of a guest suite, I guess. It was like a bedroom, but was more than a bedroom. And there was a staircase that went upstairs, the back staircase. When you went in that thing, where the dining room was, and that like ballroom was, there was a staircase that went along that wall and up, and there was a mezzanine that went all around half of the ballroom, and then into a hallway, right? And there was another staircase that kind of wrapped around up to the third floor up there, right? Anyway, so she's taking me around, and every time we get to a place where I can go outside, I like where that herbalist apothecary was. I went outside, and I walked, a couple meters away from the house, and looked at it, and it, like I said, it looked like 20 meters long and 20 meters wide. I mean, on the inside, it looked like thousand, never-ending, tremendously gigantic place. It was like a gigantic hotel. It was like unbelievable. So it was like Doctor Who's TARDIS, bigger on the inside than on the outside. So right off, I'm only there 30 minutes. I'm realizing this place is not like any place I've ever seen. So anyway, we're in the kitchen, and she shows me, and as like when we're in the hot, she shows all these different herbs, um, drying and curing and all of that. And she basically says, so um, uh, so they so here's a no, I won't even bother with that right there. Let's see. So there's Jane. Good to see you, Jane. And then there's Sex 69 Fun. So you can just guess who that is and what they're saying. But I won't even bother with it. So she shows me. So you're going to learn about herbs, and where you're going to be staying, you're going to have your own library, and I'm going to leave you books that you're going to study. Some will be herbs, some will be history, some will be methodology on theology of esoteria and occult, and other things, right? So sounds good to me. And so she goes, once you get a handle on the nomenclature, I will see that clipboard there. I'll leave you a list, and you will go into the garden and pick it, and I'll show you and teach you how what the herbs are, and vitality, and which ones to pick and which ones not to pick at what time and when, and that'll be part of your teachings. And then in the kitchen, so here's the wood box where you need that always filled up, and I got one of those little drilly things that my friend had, and a few other little, and all you do is do that every day, and no big deal, right? And that'll be like 1/10 of what you'll be doing here. The rest is you'll be working with me on different projects, and you'll be learning from me, and you're my Padawan. I said, so what is this Padawan thing? Well, it's basically student, it's apprentice, and it's like child. Like you can be an apprentice at 12, right? But a Padawan starts when they're like 6, right? And really, by the time they're 12, they're have the knowledge and skill and experience of people who would be thought of as journeymen, right? And so that's Padawan. That's you. You've already gone through your journeyman skill set. You have a lot of skill sets, and now I'm going to teach you a new discipline, and a new perspective and new insights and a new way of looking at things, right? Okay. So, she's giving me the list of my little things to do every day. And otherwise, we will be working together. And otherwise, I'm free to do whatever I want to do, right? And so that is where I'm going to leave you, because I haven't even had breakfast yet, right? How many are there? Oh, there's 4 of you. Hour, almost 2 hours. So maybe I'll talk a little bit longer. It's so shameful, not shameful, but disappointing that what are trolls? This whole troll thing. It's like I'm just going to bop it out of existence, right? Well, so kind of hidden. So and in essence, it's probably appropriate that this troll showed up, because that's really what the teachings of the old Crone are. It's not to be a troll. What it is to be. There's trolls, and then there is other folk that aren't as disappointing as trolls. And trolls are okay; they have their place in its situation. So, and that's really pretty much the storyline, is that everything is as it should be. I mean, the world looks crazier than you think it is, but it's really not that crazy, right? So I want to say, first of all, thank you for everyone who's here, and all thumbs up. And I would love it if someone could put something in my PayPal. Remember, if you want to get a hold of me, it's the dudewake42 at Gmail, all one word, dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail. If you haven't, you can send me a photo of your hand, everything like this, from the tip of your finger to about here. Get that, and I can read that, and this side of it too. And you get a hold of me on the Gmail, the dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail. I'll get back to you if you got a phone number in America. Get back to me if you can call me from whatever foreign lands you're at. You can do that, and So please put something in my PayPal. I could really use it because I'm not going to be have a youthful hands. Yep. And man, I've been an electrician, a mason. I mean, these hands do really, for the last 70 years, they haven't just been playing the piano. They've been doing hard labor. And my whole body is, I'm in my mid 70s, you know. So, and I'm lost 240 pounds, so I'm not. I used to be, woo, baby. I'll try and unearth. I won't try. I will unearth a number of photos. That of the old Crone's territory in Ireland, her road, and etc. Because all the photos I took on her place never came out. Right? The roads up to her place, you can see them, but and when I went up, the last time I went up there was in '05, and I brought the woman who I was, my girlfriend at the time, and she was pretty rich, and another friend of mine who just inherited 5 million, and she wanted to, well, maybe I'll buy some property in Ireland. You always talk about Ireland, and so she flew me and my girlfriend over there with her, and we took a trip around, and I took her up on that road, and we didn't get a third of way up, and she was, like totally freaked out about it, right? And she wanted to turn back. I said, "Well, we really have to go all the way to the top to turn around." She said, "No, I want to turn around now." I said, "There's no place to do it, to go up the back of the cliff, right?" And well, and I don't backwards. I don't back up too well. So anyway, so I knew that I was saying that to her, but there was a place like another 3 miles up where you could make a turnaround, right, and come back down. So anyway, um, I will unearth those photos, right? And so that's where I'm going to leave you off now. I gave you a good, and see, you can replay this show, right? And I have at least 2,000 shows up there that are worth watching. You know, YouTube is a great vehicle. You want to learn how to do brain surgery, virtually anything. YouTube has a YouTube on how to do it. I mean, it's really one of the baddest things. It's too bad that that part of the internet is going away, and we're going to be having to suffer. Um, Everyone will have to have Musk internet, right? Because there will be a technological oops, and the internet will go away. Period. And it will be replaced. Oh, don't worry, I have Musk internet. That's why he's like doing what he's doing to Twitter, right? Because in a corporate structure, whenever you're going to have radical change, you have to destroy what came first, so the people can't go back to what was there. When you want them to do this new thing, you have to destroy what it was. And the best example of that, the best description, the best, very detailed motif on this is Mein Kampf, and there's two books, Mein Kampf 1 and 2, and they go in extreme detail, technical detail, on how to force a fascist state onto the public. And you should go read it for that. And Adolf Hitler didn't write those books. Adolf Hitler is just a tweaker. If you go to Joe Rogan, I don't know how he organizes his show, but he had this one video of Adolf Hitler in the box where the Fuhrer was for the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, right? The first modern Olympics was that, and it was done on purpose to like kick the ball off for the new world order, right? And it was obvious this guy was on meth or some kind of drug because he was just shaking and jacking off at the same time. It was like pretty, and so this is 1936 Adolf Hitler, right? So all of those guys who got whacked at Nuremberg, Goering and Goebbels, and they were not in charge. Again, they were just poster boys of this. The whole entity that ran it, Hail Hydra, was in the background. And that's who's running our story. So if you go to journalism, right? And watch the show they did this Friday. They do their main show every Friday, and they had Joseph P. Farrell, and they basically covered soup to nuts, everything from the beginning of the 20th century till now, and focusing on flying saucers and JFK's assassination and other things of that nature. Um, go watch that, edify yourself on that, and then when I come back tomorrow, and I will talk about that. I was informed on what dark journalism talked about yesterday, Friday, today's Saturday, Friday, their show in the evening with Joseph P. Farrell. The old crone gave me the heads up on what that show, yesterday's show on dark journalism, was about. She told me back in 1970. Right? So that's what the story I'll tell tomorrow, right? And I'll tell other people. Come on, let's get more people. I only have 490 subscribers. Come on, let's get me up there. Get me some kind of funding from my show, right? And you guys should go look at all those shows and put them on thumb drives and hard drives and DVDs and um, you know CD-ROMs and put them on other because a guy like Chris Hedges, he had a really great show on RT, and then Google or whoever took them off. Just and everything that had been on RT, if people hadn't saved it, was gone. So Chris probably had 200 really great shows he had done, and luckily he had saved each one of them. Now I don't have any kind of technology to do any of that, or knowledge base on how to do it. Chris is, has been doing that. He's been a reporter, his whole life, so he understands media. He understands all of this, and so I don't. And if he wanted to, the contrary was supposed to be a vehicle where we would build a crew of people that we would go forth and bring to the public the alternative technology that the old crone gave to me and that other great scholars and teachers I've had have given to me. Now, a lot of people, oh, it's so terrible that this isn't getting, but it is. It's being pervaded out through everyone, and I don't have to. A lot of my ideas are things. My first wife used to get very upset because in my studio, I would make and invent things and do stuff and use them in my art, use them on jobs I had. I'd light them up a certain way, so people would see them and then copy them and then make them and have a business and make money at it, right? But I didn't want to spend my whole life doing that one thing, making money at a light fixture, right? Now, if somebody else wants to copy it, well, it'd be nice if they had given me a cut, but that's okay, because people would see the stuff I did and say, I'm starting to see this show up in other places, and it's let's see, since had a dream of Colin Farrell recently. Colin Farrell. Oh, okay. So Joseph Farrell is Joseph P. Farrell. He's a scholar, right? So, Jane, have you ever seen dark journalism? Can you still communicate with me and jump onto YouTube and look up dark journalism? Let's see. I had it rolling earlier on in the show, and YouTube. There we go.
Knew something about UFOs and so on and so forth, and simply by the way they're asking questions from the witnesses that they're summoning.
Absolutely, and you've got in your books on this, which really dived in deep. You've got the UFO mention, Project Blue Book, and Roswell all in the Monmouth. In the Monmouth transcript. And Crone is asking those questions.
And Crone and McCarthy are both asking these questions. And let's remember what Monmouth at that time was doing. It was doing top secret radar research.
Right.
So again, we're back to radar.
Interesting points. There's a quality, I would say, to Crone's interrogation of the military people, which is like, you better share this with us or else.
Yeah.
And it's very aggressive.
You can read those transcripts, and I think what you're getting there is Crone is the bad cop. He's the aggressive question.
So, you hear about Joe McCarthy and Red hunting and how terrible he was. Well, he was actually going after this super secret stuff about Hail Hydra and Operation Paperclip and the 70,000 active Nazis in our government, like Werner von Braun, and what they were going to do to the world. And that's what and that's why he's gotten such a bad rep. And say, Crone, same. Now, I met both those guys, not Joe McCarthy, but I met Cohen a number of times because he loved Studio 54 and he loved amyl nitrate. And even though he was a total racist and total xenophobe and total hated gay guys, he loved it up the butt. So, and that's usually the case of it. So, and all of this is going to really start falling out, right? And the world population is going to have to start coming to grips with who and what we are, what we're doing here. And that's what I'm going to talk about with the old Crone thing. So this audience should be a lot bigger than the 12 people that normally watch it live, and 30 or so that watch it as wallpaper. This is going to be some intense, interesting things. And I'd love it if you guys could do a little homework and so this is nice. Jane, had a dream about Colin Farrell recently. Well, what was the dream about? What context does it, is it just because Joseph P. Farrell, a great scholar, as what we're, this is what the cadre has to be. The cadre has to start being not trolls and a few folks who like to say hi, but people who want to dive and dig into what's going on here, right? And because that's why I'm doing this. Now I'm putting it up there and giving you stories about this stuff, and each show is a shamanic ceremony, so you get energy from it, and you should basically realize this and start promoting it out to your family and friends and have other people. We should have a large, audience, a couple 100,000 watch each of these shows because then it would have a real effect. It already has effects. Why do you do it if only 3 people watch it, and you only get 2 likes? No, it doesn't matter because I am dropping my pebble into the World Wide Web's pond and it goes out, right? So that's what it is. And it's getting on towards 3 and I haven't eaten anything. So I'm starting to get all hungry. So I'm going to go do that. It hasn't really rained, but it's, I love you guys. So come tomorrow. And I would say sometime around 10 a.m. I should be on it, and then I will jump in 3 or 4 times on Sunday between 10 a.m. and 2 or 3 p.m. Okay. So I'll say goodbye.